Welcome to the Lean Out Your Business podcast, a show dedicated to helping entrepreneurs accelerate business growth and simplify success. I'm your host, Krista Grasso, and I've been working with businesses for more than 2 decades to help them lean out and optimize what's working while eliminating anything that's not adding value. So if you are ready to get more time back in your day, more profit in your business, and to do business differently, growing and scaling on your terms, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Lean Out Your Business podcast. Today, I am so excited to be joined by Anna Felix. We got connected through a mutual friend, and as soon as I met her and heard her story, I instantly knew that I wanted her on the podcast. So today, we're going to be talking all about finances. We're going to be talking about how you can grow your money, and we're going to specifically be talking about how you can grow your money in a way that's smart, that's safe, and that's significant, which is her special sauce that she's going to be sharing all about with us. And she'll share a little bit about her story with you, which is really just such a kind of beautiful story in so many ways, as challenging of an experience as it must have been for you. What you've been able to do through that just was very moving to me. So I know that all of you listening will enjoy it as well. So Anna, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I love getting the opportunity to talk to women and just share with them. It's how we get things done, and I love it.
Fantastic. So let me tell you a little bit about Miss Anna. She is a smart money strategist with a background in education and linguistic intelligence. After becoming a widow in 2010 and not being able to find the info she needed to become more financially savvy, she decided to turn her pain into purpose. I love that line. And today she empowers her clients with financial strategies that will make them financially bulletproof. She empowers her clients to figure out the best way to grow their money using her 3 S's: smartly, safely, and significantly, which is what we're going to be talking all about today. So let's talk about the 3 S's to kick this off. What are they? Why are they important? Why and how are they going to help us grow our money?
Yeah, well, they're important because it gives us an opportunity to make choices about how we want to grow money. Typically, it's you're this old, and this is how much you have, and this is what you should be doing, and that's kind of just the path that's taken. But oftentimes, we have other things in mind that we want to do. If we wanted to retire 10 years sooner, then we've got to grow our money a little differently because we want to be done sooner. So it's got to be much more smartly, right? It's got to be safe. I feel like women and I, when I was learning this, as you mentioned, I was like, I don't want to lose any money. Like, I'm already having to start over here at 42. I don't want someone to tell me, oh, sorry, the market's down. So therefore, you've lost this much money. And, there's a place for that, but that wasn't the sandbox I wanted to play in. I wanted to be able to have the ability to say, I want to take loss off the table at all. If I can do that, that would be amazing. And it just makes sense to be taking these things into account when you're doing it, and not leaving everything to, well, we hope the market's up, we hope that it's okay. I hear a lot of that hope oftentimes. And so not, being in control more of, does it make sense for me to do it this way or that way? That's where the smart comes in. Safely is, we don't do anything where we're not sure what the market's going to do. So all the things that I implement for clients are things where we never have market loss, right? We take all of the ups, but we take none of the downs in the market. Everything has what we call a zero floor. So then we don't have to worry about that, right? Like, we don't know for sure what the future is going to bring, but we know we're not going to participate in loss. So that's a great thing. And significantly comes from a place of, how much money do I need to be putting towards what my future goals are? Because often we don't know what is it gonna be for me in the end. And if we're not really honed in on, okay, if I want to be retired by 55, then I'm going to need to make some big efforts toward this. And what does that look like? And being real with the numbers, right? Not like, well, I'll start here. And if this is something that's really serious and something we really want to do, then we can do it. We just need to be all in on it and be engaged and like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And we can create that playbook and be successful.
Yeah, that's so smart. I really love that approach. And I know when I'm meeting with a lot of business owners, for some people, they're saying, I really want to be able to sell this business or retire from the business in 10 years. And they're all in. They're really, really thinking about their finances and they're really committed. But sometimes I'll get people where that's much further off. And
Mhm.
because it's so much further off, they're not thinking about it yet. It's not really a big priority to them. And to me, what we want is we want choices. You don't have to sell your business tomorrow. You don't have to sell your business in 10 years or 20 years or however it is. You don't have to ever retire. You could literally work forever and be starting new businesses forever. That will probably be me. But that being said, I think having the ability to have choices is where the power comes in. It's where that safety comes in. It's all of that. And what I love and think is so beautiful about the three S's that you shared is to me, it's positioning yourself for choices so you can strategically make the decisions that are best for you instead of being backed into a corner with something that isn't.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's what women love, right? We love shopping, right? Like it's all about choices. And yes, it and then when something happens that you're not anticipating, then you have choices, right? Do I do this? Do I do that? What's going to be the best thing? And we have to plan for that too, because we don't know what tomorrow brings.
Yeah, it's so true. I feel like we've all had things that we've experienced in our life, some of them beautiful and amazing that we're happy that we positioned ourselves to be able to take advantage of, and some of them completely the opposite that would have been beyond devastating if we hadn't positioned ourselves for them. So, all right.
So
So, speaking of financial future, how can women feel more confident about their financial future, and what do you do to really help them build that confidence in their finances?
it's going to sound so simple, but it's just having that conversation, because oftentimes it's something that we put off into the future. We say, "Oh yeah, I want to figure this out. I want to do this, but I'll do it next week or I'll do it next month." And we don't literally sit down and have that conversation. So your confidence comes from sitting down and having that conversation and figuring out, where am I? Where do I want to go? And I know for me, when I was getting started, it was like, "Oh, I'm not going to have enough, that the numbers aren't going to be good enough, they're not going to be," and most of the women that come to me that feel that way are actually in a far better place than they thought. But they continue to hold on to, "Oh, maybe it's not enough." And there's never any judgment in these conversations. Just get started. And people say, "Well, how soon should I get started?" Yesterday was the best day, the next best day is today, right? So just your confidence is going to come from knowing and having had the conversation. And even if you find out that you're not where you should be or that you are behind, heaven forbid, let's just say worst case scenario, like you're super behind. How soon do you want to know that, right? Like if I'm super behind and I need to catch up, then I wanted to know that a year ago, right? But now I'm finding out now. So perfect. Now I have something that I can actually be working towards. So that confidence comes from the knowing and just having the conversation.
Yeah, it's amazing the confidence that comes from clarity. Yet
Yes.
sometimes we avoid the very things that will give us the clarity that we want so badly.
It could be a vicious circle, but it just does help. Trust me on that.
Well, I feel like we just touched on what might be one of the mistakes, but I'm super curious to hear what are some of the mistakes that you see entrepreneurs make really regularly with their money that you wish you could change? You wish you could tell them, no, no, do this instead.
Yeah, and there's several that come up right away. It's going to sound like I'm repeating myself, but knowing your numbers, right? Like, where does your money go? Like, at the end of every month, where does it go? And I know, some people are like, I don't like to track, and I don't want to have to keep track of stuff. And I'm not saying that it needs to be like every cent, but you need to have a general idea of literally where you are, and what are your expenses at the month, what do you have left over, where are things going, where are they headed, because that makes such a big difference. I mean, one of my questions is going to be, how much income do you have on a monthly basis to put towards your plan that we're looking to create? If you don't know your numbers, you're not going to know what that is, right? So that's super important. The other thing is leaving this work to someone else, right? A lot of entrepreneurs and business owners say, I have this person, and they just handle it for me. I don't have, I don't like numbers. I don't want to be involved in that. I get that, but maybe the daily, weekly, monthly little things, yes, maybe have someone else that handles that. But at the end of the day, you need to know where this is going and where it's all headed. And so being in charge of that enough to be like, okay, this is what I want to have done, and I want to be at least at a high level involved in what's going on. And I think that doing that is super important, not leaving that to someone else. It may not be your strength, and that's okay, but you need to have some knowledge of what's going on. And then I think the other thing is, keeping track of it. And again, oftentimes people are like, well, I don't like the restriction that comes with, I've got to do this and I've got to do that. But at least, quarterly, be checking in with, how are things going? What are we reaching the goal? Are we not? Are we behind? It doesn't take a lot of time, but it can just be really important to pivot and say, okay, well, it's okay. I say you can start over tomorrow at any time, right? It's not a huge deal, but if you continue to let it go and you're not checking in, then how far off course are you, right? So I think those are the things that I see that they're not complicated. That's what I love about it. It's simple, but it's just keeping track of it.
Yeah. I will admit, I'm kind of on the fence about numbers. Sometimes I love numbers, sometimes I don't. But I love for someone else to do the detailed piece of numbers. But I love to know the numbers and I love to leverage numbers to help make decisions.
Yeah.
So, but I don't want to be the one in there doing the micro detail on it. But I can't imagine being so disconnected from the numbers. And I do know a lot of entrepreneurs are, especially those who are visionaries, who it's not their passion in life.
And I get that. I totally get it. But like I said, you just need to have a handle on where things are going. And so a nice mix of that is successful.
Absolutely. I remember there was an email that I got recently of a business that closed, somebody who'd been in business for a really long time. And what struck me so much in her email was not that her business was closing, it was that she communicated that her accountant told her that her business was in a place where she could not keep going and she had to close it immediately. And I just remembered thinking, this is a business that's been in business for probably a decade, maybe 15 years. And it took an accountant saying you need to close the business now. How could you be that disconnected from the numbers that happened? And it sounds kind of ridiculous, but I think there's probably a lot more business owners out there that are in that boat than we might think.
And that's why I say I feel like it's simple, and that maybe I'm just making it too basic, but really it is. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, it's that course correction, like, somewhere before that moment where they said, hey, we're done, we're at the end of the rope, like, you needed to have checked in, and where are things, so yeah, it's crazy how it happens. But we get into the business, we're busy, we're doing all the things that we enjoy doing, that, often we leave out the things that, that we don't love. And that's easy to do. That's just, human nature.
Absolutely. All right. So I want to pivot a little bit and talk about retirement because I'm so curious to hear what you recommend for entrepreneurs. I know in corporate, it's very much have a 401k, build a 401k. When you have your own business, what do you recommend that an entrepreneur actually does to invest in their retirement?
Yeah, so it's a strategy that I call build your own bank. It is based, the foundation of it is a life insurance policy. And the reason for that is that there's an IRS code 7702 that says that if you grow money in a life insurance policy, any money that you then take out later is tax free to you. So we've done two things. We're growing money and we're doing it tax free. So you mentioned the 401k. The thing about the 401k is that you're not paying taxes on it at all. It's deferred. So it's growing, it's growing, it's growing, and that's great. But when you retire and start to take money from that, you're going to pay taxes at that time. So let's just say that we have someone that's starting a 401k now. What do we think taxes are going to be doing 30 years from now? Most people agree with me that they're going to have to go up, right? Just based on the things that are happening, the debt that we have that's accruing, they're most likely going to go up. So, do I want to write a check for Uncle Sam, and be like, yeah, in 30 years, you just put in that number, whatever it is that I'm going to owe you then? That could be a scary proposition, right? Like, so if I could grow that money in a place where when I take the money out in 30 years, it doesn't matter if taxes are up, if they're the same, if they're lower, I'm not going to have that tax bill then. So it makes a ton of sense from a tax perspective, from a safety perspective, because this is also a place where our growth is based on the S&P 500, but it isn't in the S&P 500. So when there's loss in the market, our accounts hold steady. There is no loss until things go back up, and then the account goes back up. So you take loss out of the equation, you take taxes out of the equation, and you're able to fund it to the degree that you choose to. So for those that can do it on a monthly basis, that's great. For those that want to put significantly more into their plan and they want to fund it on an annual basis into, 50, 60, $70,000 a year, whatever they can do, then you can do that. We design the plan so that it's able to take that amount of money in. So it's very structured based on what the client can do, and there's different ways to design it, which is again choices, right? We love that. So wherever they're at, we can meet them with this type of a plan.
That sounds completely brilliant, but I also love how well that demonstrates your 3 S's. It's smart, it's safe, it's significant. Brilliant.
Yeah.
And speaking of taxes, because you touched on taxes, right? Taxes are probably top of mind this week since we're at the filing deadline, right? And so for entrepreneurs who are thinking about maybe they're feeling the pain a little bit of some taxes that they might have had to have paid this year, right? What are some things that we should be thinking about or considering to really set ourselves up for success and to minimize some of the surprises that can sometimes happen when we file our taxes for the year?
Yeah, well, I think some of it does go back to this whole thing of being, in control of where things are at and what they're doing. Like, the year before is really when you want to start thinking about what your tax bill is going to be, right? So keeping track of, all the expenses that you have, keeping track of, I think that whoever it is that's preparing your taxes, whether that be your CPA or, some other tax professional, they need to be really knowledgeable about what it is that you are looking to do. How is it that you want that tax situation to come out? You know, how are you best served with the quarterlies? With your business is going to have some specific areas where tax laws are changing all the time. I just did a post about that. Like some of the things that you were able, like There is no recreational deductions taken now for entertainment or anything like that. If you have your own business, they've pretty much done away with that. Like, you need to know what these things are as you're going into that new year, right? So you almost got to be a year ahead of what's going on so that you can be aware of that. Oh, I'm not going to have those deductions this year. So how am I going to leverage that? Like, that is super important. What we just talked about, if you're taking advantage of Roth money, so that's money that you can put aside in a Roth IRA. How does that affect your taxes? Like, you're going to have to pay some taxes this year, but how can you leverage all of those things so that you are minimizing what you're actually paying out? So, though, that's a really important conversation. When I put these plans together for my clients, we're absolutely having a conversation with the CPA too, because they're trying to save you taxes for this year. I'm working on saving you taxes in the coming years. And so, us figuring out what is that really good amount, like, okay, well, this could be good here, but we don't want to raise their tax bill this year. So, we're having that conversation so that we can help you this year as much as we can and in the coming years. And so, knowing where all of that fits in is super important. So it's definitely a team effort to make sure that we are maximizing all of the things that you can use in your business.
So smart. So smart. And yeah, there's so much with taxes that I feel like we just, unless that's your specialty, unless that's your area of passion, there's just too much to keep track of to know. And I will speak for myself here. Maybe some of you listening have a different opinion, but that is not where I want to be investing my time and energy. I want somebody who knows those things to be telling me.
Yes, absolutely. I think the tax code is like 1,400 pages, something crazy like that. I mean, yeah, it just, you can't know it all. You've got to have help with that.
Yeah. I'd rather deep dive into the micro details of my finances.
For sure.
So, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your work and what you do with clients. And if you can share that and how you got into this, if you can share a little bit about your story.
Yeah, sure. So what I do with my clients is I help them create the best future possible that they can within their circumstances, and that came from my need to do that for myself. So, as you mentioned in the intro, I became a widow in 2010, and I was not oblivious, but I was certainly not in tune with all of these things that we're talking about today. And I felt very unempowered around it and went looking for some help. And I just naively thought that I would walk in somewhere, ask them some questions, and they would be like, oh, yeah, this is how you do it. And we do this and we do that. That is not what it looked like. And I think it was like the third financial advisor that I met with. He literally said to me when I asked a few questions, you know what, Anna, you don't need to understand this stuff. You just need to marry a rich guy. And I was just like, oh my goodness. Okay. That was not okay on so many levels. And I just thought, and today I say it was a gift because it just was so jarring to me that walking back to my car after that appointment, I thought, I've got to do something on my own because I could have done a much better job in that appointment just from a compassionate standpoint. Um, but now I just need to figure out what is the info that I'm looking for. And so it led me to, you know, what is the best thing for me to do? And then I started learning about these things, but nobody was really talking about it. And a lot of advisors that I had met with hadn't even mentioned these things. Be your own bank, like nobody had mentioned that. And so it was like, as I talked to other women, I realized, we're not being taught these things. And unless we start having this conversation, how much longer is this going to go? I mean, these were things as I started diving in that very wealthy families had been doing for a very long time. But that conversation wasn't being had in the conversations like with my friends and other business owners that we were having. Nobody was talking about that. We're not, the very elite. And so nobody was offering that info to us. So I thought, I need to bring this to the table and I need to help other women do this. And so that's literally how I got into the industry. And I would have never suspected that I would be doing this in what I call the second act of my life. But it's so much fun because I can take something that for many women is fearful or not something that they love, kind of like how I felt about it, and make it easy to understand. And then they feel like, oh, I can do this. Okay. Like, we don't have to throw out all the fancy financial jargon out there. We can do this and we can be effective and we can do this in a way that is exciting and it's fun. And now we feel empowered and now we're excited to put this money away because we understand it, right? Like, I think when you understand how something works and it's not above your head and it's not being done in a way that you feel demeaned in the process, then you're like, hey, this is exciting and I want to share it with other people. And as a community of women, now we can help the younger generation. I mean, I think this stuff should be taught at least at the high school level. We need to become empowered and know about this so that we can start making really wise decisions as early as possible in our lives, because that is huge. If you apply some of these strategies young in life, I mean, man, where you can go is phenomenal. And it's just somebody needs to start the conversation.
So, what I love so much about your journey and your path here is A, who would have thought that that comment that that guy made that you just want to shake him for? Like, really? But that comment would have led you here. And the fact that you navigated through such a challenging time in such a comment that I feel like could have really knocked a lot of people off of their game and said, forget this. And instead, you dug in, you learned it, and you have made this your mission to now help other people and to help women and business owners and people who don't have access to some of this information. It just, to me, I love your story. And I'm very grateful that you have chosen this path because I do think that we all need more people who can speak really simply and really clearly about money so that we can understand it and truly grow our own wealth.
Yeah, thank you. No, like I say, I think that a lot of things in this world come from, you're in a situation and you've got to figure your way out and it ends up leading you to something that, you can serve other people with. And so, I love that all of that could serve a purpose, right? It was definitely a difficult time. I wouldn't wish any of that on anyone, but that it could at least serve a purpose today, it brings much more value to it.
So tell everyone where they can find you online and connect with you if they want to learn a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, so the best place to connect with me online is on my website, annafelix.com, or on LinkedIn. I have a lot of posts there, some videos, and you'll get to see my community there and how I'm empowering women around their finances.
Fantastic. All those links will be down below in the show notes. And now I want to ask you the question that I ask every guest, and I cannot wait to hear what you have to say. And that is, how do you work smarter, not harder, and keep things lean in your business?
So I work at making every client that I work with a raving fan. And that simplifies my marketing and advertising and all of that, because what happens is they love the experience, they love what we're doing, they feel so empowered. And so then what do? They go and share it with everyone else that they know, right? Like a good movie and a good restaurant. And I learned that from some of my mentors, and it's great because then I get to work with their friends and their family and their neighbors and other people that they know, and we just become a big happy family. And so I love that I'm able to create that type of a community.
Fantastic. All right. So, final question before we wrap this up. And that is, what are any final tips that you have for entrepreneurs who are listening who do want to grow their money and they really resonate with your approach of growing it smartly, safely, and significantly?
Yeah, well, I would say, let's have a conversation as soon as possible. I really strive to make this easy to understand, non-stressful. So don't put it off any longer, because that's the one thing that I think we all do when we don't have everything in place. It's just like, oh, I'm busy, and I'll put this off to another time. And I did it myself, and do it with other things. So just really look at, the sooner I get this put together, the better I'm going to feel, the better it's going to be for me. And don't sweat all the details. Just start having that conversation, and you'll find out that it's not as hard and as difficult as you thought. And you'll feel so much better after. So, yeah, I would just recommend, let's have a conversation.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your story and your wisdom. I hope all of you got as much value out of this as I did, and I will see you again next week. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode. If you have not yet taken our scalability assessment, I invite you to head to leanoutmethod.com/assessment and take our interactive assessment that's going to help you look at how simple, how sustainable, and how scalable your business currently is. It includes personalized recommendations of where to focus next to get your time back, to increase your impact, increase your profits, and ultimately step into your rich, fulfilled life. And finally, we'd love to see you inside our signature program, Simplify to Scale. You can head to leanoutmethod.com/ops to find all of the details on how we can help you uplevel your operations and get out of the day-to-day of your business.